Book of Wars Against Jehovah, chapter 41, verse 1 through 3, it states, "Darker and darker the Hadean fields paled before the touch of Jehovah's hand, to try the self-assuming Lord God and his heavenly works, as if an epic new and terrible had come to one so audacious, who foremost in heaven and earth had sought to banish the worship and the name of the Great Spirit from mortals, and give them instead a heavenly ruler in the image of man." And this is exactly what you see again in ancient time during this time period. And this time period, like I state, coincide between 3700 BC to around 2800 BC. That's the reign of Dyus in power before his fall of what's taking place now. But prior to that time, the inhabitants in Kemet, the inhabitants of Sumer, the inhabitants of China, India, they all worshiped the Creator in their own manner. But after that, when Dyus established himself and inspired humans to make images and say that these images represent the gods and your Creator, they made you. And then man began to believe these concepts, and you have these same concepts today. And these are the results of what happened to those people who believe in these concepts. Verse 3, "For this was the criterion before the courts, that they that refuse fish and flesh food, or would not pollute the body by noxious drink and smoke, intoxicating to the sense, were possessed of Jehovian worship, and so deserve torture and death." So we're here is stating that if you ain't smoke, drink, or eat flesh, you was considered a worshiper of Jehovah and deserve death. That was like a law back then. If they found out you was a vegetarian, they were going to try to put you to death. Now, here is where Dyus and Anubis are cast in hell. Book of Wars Against Jehovah, chapter 41, verse 8 through 13, it states, "Pressure downward, Jah came. Slowly and surely, their very motion spoke as million tongues, serious, awful. For many on every side of the host of Anuhasaj were deserting him. As one in a small way may see on a sinking ship, how the expert swimmers with strong arms leap into the water boldly and swim for the far-off shore, while the helpless in frantic rage cluster fast upon the distracted officers, blockading them from doing good. So began the tumult in the fast-descending plateau, Horeb, which was increased 100-fold by the flood of spirits of darkness, Jugers, cast upon Dyus' kingdom by his own treacherous false gods." Verse 9, "Dyus' generals and captains first tried music to hold the 40,000 millions to peace and order. But the Es-Inors are musicians in the spirit world. They're angel musicians. The Es-Inors themselves took fright, and by the millions fled, flying down to the earth to Osiris or to Tians or to Sudga's kingdom, and overflooding mortals with ghostly revelries. Next, by parades and rites and great processions, did Dyus' officers seek to divert the panic-stricken millions." Verse 10, "Thus for years this maddened god with wonderful strength of will almost held his own, inventing tens of thousands of stratagems. But at last, in the downward course, Horeb touched upon the corporeal earth, and suddenly, as if startled by the shock, the frantic millions screamed, and then Alice, all order died." So here is saying that the kingdom of Dyus touched the corporeal earth, meaning that it came to the physical earth. And that's an interesting statement that it said that the spiritual actually materialized to the physical realm, descending down. Verse 11, "The doors of hell were open, and Uhasaj's throne and capital with all their splendor, and maddened mob broke loose to pillage or to destroy, and then rushed in the fault finders, shouting, though lying God, but like a man who are thou, and thou Anubis, deceiving judge, 1,000 horrid death to thee." So now the angels discovered that they were false gods, and now they're getting their due justice. Verse 12, "But the unlearned Jugers, spirits of darkness, knew not who was rank or officer, god or judge, but seized the pale and trembling Dyus and Anubis, and more than 1,000,000 officers overpowered them, and by 10 millions to 1, pressed on by the foul-smelling crowd. And now with blows and kicks and cuffs on every side began the awful fray, till stretched as wide as the earth, the countless millions were plunged into hell. Thereupon to the right and left was now an unceasing combat, and all the hosts of the Lord God were sworn for vengeance against anyone they came against. Verse 13. And then came the torturers, casting into the hells most offensive, smelled and suffocating gases, cramped in the nose and mouth of their victims. No more were the Lord God and Anubis seen, but swallowed up in measureless darkness, where every soul sought nothing good, but labored hard to give unto others excruciating torture for vengeance sake. So this is taking place in the spirit world here. So here's a description of what hell is. It's disorder and chaos. No different than disorder and chaos on earth. Now, here's God's concern with Dyus being in hell. Book of Wars Against Yehovah, chapter 42, verse 1 through 5, it states, God in Yehoshua prayed Yehovah what he should do to release Dyus and Anubis. Yehovah answered, saying, My son, thou shalt first labor for them that desire. Whoso courteth darkness deserve not thy hand. I have proclaimed from since the olden time, warning to them that put me away, but in their self-conceit they deny my person and power. Verse 2. Were though this day to deliver from hell Dyus and Anubis, and their thousands of millions of self-torturing slaves, they would but use their deliverance to mock my creation, saying, It lasted not, it was but a breath of wind, for which reason thou shalt not yet meddle with the hells of Horeb. So here, Yehovah is telling true God that let Dyus and Anubis sit in hell for a while. Let them feel what it is to know that they are not the creator. Now, verse 3. In 400 years I will bring the earth into another dawn of light. To then let Dyus and Anubis and their hosts take their course. So here the scriptures are saying that for a period of 400 years and more, they're going to be in this condition. Now, verse 4. God inquired concerning Osiris and Tin and Sudga, and Yehovah answered him, saying, Sufficient unto them is the light they have received. Suffer them also to take their course, for they also shall become involved in hells of their own buildings. So here Yehovah is telling true God that let Osiris, Tin, and Sudga continue in their way, and in the end they will be in the same predicament as Dyus. Verse 5. But be thou attentive to my chosen, the faithless, in all parts of heaven and earth, not suffering one of them to fall into the hells of my enemies. So here, Yehovah is telling true God that don't let those who worship the Creator on earth fall into the hells of these angels after death. So if you're worshiping the Creator on earth, you are definitely guided and protected. It's an order, it's a structure. And the Most High knows your mind and heart. So at the time of death, he already knows what to do with this spirit of yours. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings and catch you on the next documentary called The Establishment of the Three False Gods, Osiris, Tin, and Sudga, in the lands of Kemet, Arabia, China, and India. Shalom.